Hello. Welcome to Eyes of Indigo with Margot Ross Sears, and I'm Iris Carter, and we're glad to
Hello.
have y'all here. Yes, and
It's great to see you, Iris.
yes, and
Ooh, you
so
gotta switch. We gotta switch sides on the screen.
well, okay, all right. You want me to do?
Yeah, because the names are backwards now.
Well, I'll take it down in a minute anyway.
All right, no big deal. We'll switch up again.
It's all an experiment.
Such is life. Such is life.
Yes,
It's all an
yes.
experiment for sure.
And I
All right,
cook.
I
So,
threw you off. Hi,
hello.
Angie.
Yes, hello. So today we are, and I'm trying to do too much and not focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing.
You want me to?
Okay.
You want me to say the intro while you talk?
Well,
I should offer that,
I
or
just
while you
pulled
type.
up. I got it pulled up now. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah. So welcome to the Eyes of Indigo, and again, I'm Iris Carter, and this is Margot Ross Sears, and tonight's discussion is hello. The Hades that Dante built, myths, legends, and religious manipulations created to control the general population with the threat of going to hell. And that's one hell of a topic, huh?
Bada boom. That was a little on the nose there. Hi,
Hey,
Deborah. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Dale.
good to see y'all. So, yeah, this was a big topic for us to tackle. And we've been talking about, well, what do we want to include and how do we want to cover this? And
Because it's huge,
yeah, and it's like
huge
reeling
subject.
it back in. That's another topic. That's another topic.
Another
Um,
day. Hi,
yeah,
Randy.
but one of the things, that I guess in essence that we see a lot is, people go, oh, you're going to hell for that. And yeah, I got to share this. The fact that there's a highway to hell and a stairway to heaven says a lot about anticipated traffic numbers.
Especially now.
And when I was looking, because I remembered that saying when I was looking for it, I saw another one where there's a guy in a wheelchair at the bottom of the stairway to heaven, and he's going, "You've got to be kidding
You
me!"
kidding me? Dang, ain't nothing sacred.
No.
Hey, Janine. Hi, Tara. Hello,
Oh,
Edie. Good. Everybody's stacking up. Glad to see you guys.
yes, awesome. So, you know, and I guess one of my personal things is I see a lot of people agonizing over what happens when you die, and are you going to hell, and do you really think you're going to heaven,
Or what's
and
actually in the afterlife or not. What's the
yes,
consequence? Is there a consequence? Yada, yada, yada. Right. We
exactly.
get that question a lot in our lives. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so one of the things is just a little bit of background is okay, we know Jesus died in about 33 AD, and or not, I'm sorry, the crucifixion happened in 33 AD.
Thank
And
you for clarifying that. Yeah.
yeah, you know, um
The
and
popular
and
belief system is that Jesus did something cool and interesting that was socio-political in 33. Yeah.
yes.
And it
I
may have
love
included death and it may not have. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion, like you just said. Yeah.
But and also we also one of the things we wanted to clarify too is we are not experts. We are not, you know,
We're not biblical scholars
yeah.
per
So
se.
some of this
However,
is our opinion, but we dug and found some stuff to back up
really,
what we're saying. Yeah. And
yes.
so one of the things is that, you know, first of all, the New Testament was told as stories for years. Matthew was the first one that got put into writing and was estimated to be around the year 75. So people were playing the telephone gossip game for a number of years before stuff actually got put down.
And we
What did
all
he try
know,
to do?
and we all know how, and we know how accurate word of mouth is not really
Yeah,
quick. So
very
stories telling and retelling, yeah, it's going to have a thread of truth, but we know the way humans communicate, we embellish, we forget, and the story changes.
and
And
then
that's
it's been translated how many times? Talk about lost in translation.
yeah, going from language to language, that alone drops anywhere from 1/10 to 1/2 of the meaning just by estimation. Yeah.
And
And
so what you had was little pockets of Christianity all over the place. People had kind of been in hiding because Christianity was outlawed, and
until
then, yeah, and so people were kind of taking their stories and taking what had been written and what they knew and what they didn't know and had to improvise with. And
underground, late at night, around the fire, yada yada.
exactly.
Very,
So,
very pagan.
yes.
By the way, just
You
a
want to talk
side
about
note.
Christmas? No, we'll talk about Christmas closer to
Yeah.
Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Let the holidays get closer, and we'll talk about pagan and Christmas. Well, yeah, that's an eye opener too. But anyway,
You'll know when we're talking about that.
good one.
I'm full of puns tonight. Okay.
We need a bell or something for when we say something. Sort of like a drum roll.
Oh, but anyway, so Emperor Constantine gets put in what,
Yeah.
325, and he says he forms the Council of Nicaea, which was this organization of, because he made Christianity legal again,
Right.
or legal finally,
More
and
legal. Right.
so he pulled together the council, which was representatives from all these little pockets of people that had been um, uh, talking. And so he says, they get together and there's lots of screaming and yelling and fighting. And what they
Political
essentially, yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
we find out that they determined a consensus of their beliefs.
At the
They're the
time.
ones that decided when Easter would be, and
When
canon law, and all these other little things that make up Christianity
that
that
are
just kind of,
foundational that
yeah,
are foundational in Christianity that did
right,
not exactly come right off the plate or the script that came out of the mouth of the Messiah,
exactly.
that came out of the
So,
mouth of the Christ.
and then, when you realize that Gutenberg didn't invent the printing press till 1400, you
And
know,
in China, it was what, a few
like
hundred years
it
before.
was 100, I think. It was like in
Yeah,
97.
a couple
Yeah.
hundred years earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
So,
changed everything from people being illiterate to more and more literate, but that was gradual. The population didn't suddenly become literate.
and so, and you had a lot of people that were still passing things on by word of mouth until then.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, then you've got people, the King James version. Well, King James of England, he was around Shakespeare 1500, somewhere in there. And
Okay.
he wanted an interpretation of the Bible. He's like, it's time for an update. And so,
The audacity.
I know. And he got it. But, and I
Yeah.
think I've told this story before, but a woman that we both happen to know, she met this woman who was talking about the Bible and how much, and which version do you like better? And, and the woman that she was talking to says, I like the King James Bible the most because it's most like Jesus himself spoke.
Yeah. Jesus spoke modern English.
Yeah.
That whole Aramaic thing is baloney.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Just to be clear. Yeah, stuff like that makes my eyebrows fly around.
Yes.
Woo!
And Tara adds in here, they did this because Christians were slaughtering each other over the differences in doctrine. So not
You
only
mean
did they
like they
not
still are? Like we do today? Like we've been doing ever since? With what's the Robin Hood? The Christians went to go kill the Muslims in the Fourth Crusades.
yes.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. And
Oh,
in Ireland, the Protestant Catholic conflicts that didn't abate till just a few decades ago.
and then you got those like
Ugh.
Henry VIII. Hey, I
Yeah,
want a divorce. We're
yeah,
leaving the Catholic Church.
yeah. And the Anglican Church arose, and the Lutheran Church arose, and so on and so on. You know,
So
the
all of this.
Wesleyan Church deviated, and then all the Puritans decided to come populate in the Americas, and now they had to deal with Native American paganism as well as European paganism. Woohoo!
Right. I mean,
It just goes on and on and on. Yeah.
exactly. And so when we look at all of this stuff going on, and then what do we think really happened? I guess now would be a good time to show that little short video that we found. Do you want to introduce the guy?
Sure. We're gonna show you a 3.5 minute video of 5 points made by an authority. His name is Dr. Bart Irman. He is a professor. He is a distinguished professor of divinity at UNC Chapel Hill. He's written 30 books on the topic. He specializes in New Testament, but he also speaks obviously of Old Testament because the New Testament is based on the Old Testament. And apparently he loves to debate. He's also written college textbooks, pretty well-rounded guy on the subject of what is hell and Jesus and so on.
And so this is a good foundation for some of the points we wanted to make. And so we thought, well, we'll let you listen to somebody else yap for a minute.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Technically almost our first guest.
Yes. Let's see.
All right, fire it up. Did Jesus believe in hell?
The majority of people in America continue to believe that there's a literal heaven and a literal hell. Those numbers are dropping, but it's still a majority belief, and most people assume that this is taught in the Bible. As it turns out, this understanding that you die and your soul goes to one place or another is not taught anywhere in the Old Testament, and it's not what the historical Jesus taught. Most people don't realize that when Jesus talks about an afterlife, it's not about your soul going one place to another. Jesus, like other Jews at the time, believed at the end of history as we know it, God was going to intervene in this world and destroy all of the forces of evil and bring in a good kingdom. And people who were alive would either enter into that kingdom for a utopian existence forever or would be destroyed. And people who were dead would be raised from the dead bodily to live in this kingdom or be destroyed. And so Jesus didn't believe that the soul went one place or the other. Jesus believed eternal life was lived in the body here on earth. Most people assume that Jesus and his disciples and the earliest Christians believed that a person who was disobedient to God or was immoral or who didn't have faith would be punished eternally in the fires of hell. As it turns out, Jesus didn't think that. Jesus thought that if a person was disobedient to God, at the end they would be completely destroyed, taken out of existence. There would be no conscious afterlife for these people. They would simply be done away with. And so Jesus did not believe in hell as a place of eternal torment. It seems odd to many people today, but the idea of a literal heaven and hell doesn't come from Jewish or Christian sources originally. It actually comes from Greek sources. It's first articulated most clearly actually in the writings of Plato. And the idea then that the soul goes one place or the other is part of Greek philosophy that eventually crept into a Christian faith, but it wasn't originally part of the Christian faith, and it doesn't arise out of Judaism. Two of the most influential thinkers in the history of our civilization are Socrates and Jesus. And it's interesting that both of them had views of the afterlife that were hopeful. Socrates taught that there are two options when you die. Either you enter into something like a deep sleep with no dreams, which is great. Everybody loves a good night's sleep, and this is like an eternal good night's sleep. Or you have a conscious afterlife in which you have the ability to talk with your ancestors and converse about deep things and think about interesting topics for eternity. And so it's either really good or it's good. It's good either way. Jesus actually had something very similar. Jesus thought that some people would enter into a utopian kingdom of God forever, and other people would simply cease to exist. There's no eternal torment in either one, which means that for both of them, there's nothing to be afraid of about the afterlife, but there may be something to hope for.
All right.
Yeah. So that's a good bit to consider when you're thinking about, when people say, well, who said what and who did what. I mean, that guy gives a good foundation for what wasn't. But you can also blame Council and Nicaea, sorry,
That's
for
right.
creating a method to control the masses.
Yes. Yes. The people that were designing the writing of the book, their motivation was entirely political and or a power play to control the uneducated masses at the time, which harkens, excuse me, which harkens back to the lack of printing press not being widespread for quite a while. Therefore, the only formally educated people were high-ranking people of royalty or high-ranking in the churches. Either way, both factions were political groups that controlled and moderated and dictated the morality and the behaviors and the laws of the land. Either your king did or your church did. And then it filtered down to the village after that.
Imagine religion being political. That's another topic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. All right. So just a real quick, while we're talking about this, we can see you guys. You did great. Randy, Deborah, Tara, Angie, Dee Dee, hi, yes. Heather. Guys, comment, ask questions as we go. Feel free to use the comment sections or the chat rooms, whichever way you're coming at us, YouTube or Facebook, and your insight, or share your insights. It doesn't necessarily have to be questions. It can be your insights. So I wanted to invite you guys to make comments. Tara started it off with a good comment as well. So keep going, guys. Any insights that you want to share, or questions, or topics for discussion along these lines? That's awesome. So Iris, where did you want to go next with this?
One thing I want to talk about is the fact that demons and all that stuff that come into play with it, and how they existed before and were kind of manipulated into these little bad dudes. They're what you're going to find when you go to hell.
Right.
But you might have a better approach to that than I would, as far as.
Well, you're talking about bringing a little bit of hell on earth. Some of the bleed over, which is supported in a lot of belief systems. Randy asked for talk about Jesus in other lands. Oh Lord, But Randy, you're asking us to talk about a whole nother talk show.
Yeah.
That's a huge topic, but it does tie into the fact that lots of cultures did have bleed over for heaven on earth and hell on earth. And we're part of what Iris is talking about right now is, and what we're focusing on is the demonic side of life on earth and how that's a little bit of hell, and the inherent helplessness that people sometimes feel when they think about such things as consequences of going to hell and dealing with demons now or later, and the psychology that goes along with that, and also the lack of awareness that you have more choices than you may have been told.
Yeah.
So
And
run with that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, people, they watch The Exorcist too many times and they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get possessed, or and I've had a couple of instances where, well, for example, I had a situation where another energy worker said, I've got this guy who thinks he's possessed, and I don't know that I want to work with that. She was kind of creeped out. And
Okay.
I said, I'll take it.
Hoorah.
and it was, and what, and okay, this guy was in another state. We were conversing on Skype, and sometimes we didn't even have the video on.
Right.
But I could see, and I described to him this entity and how it was kind of like perched on his head. It was almost like wearing a Batman cape.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you had
They
the,
like to
the
try to
head of the
touch you.
thing was like over his head, and it was
Yeah.
enveloping.
They try to touch you somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
and it was just kind of like, and I said, he's only there because you have some sort of subconscious belief that you want him there. And I'm paraphrasing because I wouldn't do that to somebody.
Well, they want them there, or that they don't feel, or they're vulnerable because they don't defend, or they don't realize that they have a natural defense. Not necessarily that they want it, but although they could want it,
And
but
in this
also they're
case,
just not aware. Yeah.
yeah, and in this case, the thing gave the guy confidence. He got a
Mm-hmm.
little more cocky and a little more,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "But that's not me. I'm not." And I said, "So you decide who you want to be, and
You
and
choose.
we did some digging to find, okay, did you know that you can be independent and make your own decisions free of having something whispering this stuff in your ear all the time?" And gradually got it off of him. It still kind of lingered in a corner every so often because he wasn't ready to completely let
Let
it
go
go.
of the power it gave him. Yeah.
Yeah. But I could see this thing and I knew it was there. And I've seen gargoyles, sitting on
Mm-hmm.
people. I asked a girl one time, well, what's
Are
going
you
on?
aware?
What's going on with this side of your head? It's like, well, my ear hurts a little and I get a headache on this side sometimes. Hey, can we get rid of that gargoyle that's sitting on your shoulder trying to cause problems?
Yep. Sometimes you can actually feel it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so stuff like that, do people get possessed? Yeah,
Sort of.
in a
And
way.
to different degrees.
Yeah.
Different
But
degrees, which is true of all living existence on Earth. Nothing is exactly black and white. There's shades of gray of how much involvement it is. Randy made a good point. He made his opinion or thought is we can create our own demons, and can't a demon be destructive through patterns creating into an entity type form? We're also talking about, I think he's referring to like thought forms, negative thought forms. In other words, to summarize, wrap that up a little bit, is you're talking about something that you and I talked about earlier, Iris, and attracting negativity / demon / negative thought form, or whatever you want to call it, through your intentions, through what you believe, through buying into helplessness when you're really not. And we'll get to that more in just a minute. But yeah, Randy, you're making valid points. He says he's seen shadow figures and feel the bad energies. Yes, because negative entities seek power, they seek energy. And there's two sources for it: people that radiate a lot of power or a lot of light. So the more you evolve, we call it flypaper for freaks. I don't know if you remember that. People with, the more you evolve, like when you study theta healing, or you study Reiki, or you study meditation, or you study some kind of theology, the more you evolve, the more you attract broken people or people with issues. And sometimes those issues are, negative based, demon based. It's just to use that terminology for this conversation. So as you evolve, you're become a beacon, and these negative energies are attracted to you, and via injured people that they tend to parasite on. They parasite on us because of two things. One, they need our energy, whether it's intentionally given or not. All right. And we'll talk about that more in just a second, about alleviating that. And the other thing is they don't have their own free will. You do. You're a sovereign human. You're a sovereign sacred being. So you have free will. And therefore you can support other energy beings, unintentionally or intentionally. And you can also dismiss other beings, including these demonic forces, even ones that you feel like you created and or invited originally. So Iris, I'm looking at the clock going by. Good Lord, time flies when you're having fun.
I know it.
And this topic is huge, but I wanted to throw the ball back in your court a little bit about how and why people can get away from such negative influences and demonic influences.
Well,
Typically.
I think one, you mentioned free will.
Right.
When we have free will, and if we didn't, if we were given free will and then God, creator, whatever, turned around and said, but if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna punish you, then we no longer have free will.
Right.
So right there is a big contradiction. And if you recognize, most people believe in free will. And I also found in statistics, probably less than half of people believe that there's an actual hell. So that's,
and those numbers are dropping.
yes, they're dropping continuously. But I think if you recognize that, we aren't being punished, and and I'm looking at my notes here so I don't forget, and that all of this stuff was created by people as a way to control other people.
Social, for monetary and power, political power, financial power, social power, ego.
Yes.
For ego-based reasons, absolutely.
Which that's part of our incarnation here, is
to deal with our ego issues. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why humans come to Earth at all. Yeah.
Right. And so we want to recognize that we're in control more than we realize, and that we don't have
we're more in control than we were taught.
Yes.
Just to be even more specific. Yeah.
Yes.
It's easier to control terrified people. All right. And that's a big statement that I'm making across the board, but it's also a very obvious one that anybody over the age of 5 has already figured out. Terrified people are easier to manipulate, control, and dictate to.
Yes.
So thus the threat of hell and heaven.
this also brings me to another point that introduces our topic for next week, which is the if you hear something repeated enough, you're
That
going
is
to
a spell.
believe it.
You're
And
going
it
to
is a
believe it.
spell. So
And it is
our
casting a spell or a program or a download. And we'll talk about that more
yes, spelling is next week.
next week. Yay!
And and I also want to
So repetition is frequently used in litany of the liturgy. Oh, bunch of LL words here. of,
yeah.
of the main religious institutions to teach people the doctrines of of those belief systems that say that you have a punishment or a penalty for specific behaviors and rewards as well of heaven and hell, which re-summarizing, if that's the right way to say it, re-summarizing what Iris just said, that bypasses free will, which is illogical based on what most humans know about what is a sacred being. Sidebar, another popular argument against that hell even exists or it doesn't exist the way it's been sold is the fact that God and the whole universe and the cosmos or whatever divinity word you subscribe to is a benevolent one. And benevolent creators tend to not set up their creations to punish them. That would not be the definition of a benevolent God. So
Right.
that in and of itself is also illogical and another reason to go explore that there is something else besides that type of punishment.
Also, we got a comment from Dale Jean Stacy.
Yeah.
By staying centered in love, aloha, we create quantum fields where we are constantly giving love, and the universe then mirrors this love. And this is Aloha Consciousness, where we give love and receive love by seeing, hearing, and feeling love in every moment. And that is an excellent, excellent point.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that kind of ties back to the comment that, or the observation that Randy made. Do we make our own demons? Well, yeah, we do. And I think another way to summarize what Iris just read from Dale and Jeannie. I don't know who wrote it, Dale or Jeannie, but because they're both authorities on that topic. But we also create our own heaven and or love. Uh, in the cultural aloha is another word for it in the Hawaiian based culture. So the sacredness of love. Uh, so yeah, we can invite both. Again, free will. You can invite negative. You can invite positive. What you do about it, what you do with it, is also within your free will. So, I mean, Iris, if you want, maybe you could wrap us up with a little bit of insight and advice about self-empowerment, about the free will choice, about rejecting what doesn't serve you, what doesn't serve
Yeah,
you.
yeah, because and that is, if you when people feel insecure or they feel like there's some negativity around them, if you can recognize that you are empowered and that nothing can hurt you regardless. I mean, doesn't matter what kind of being, that nothing's going to harm you unless it has
Your permission.
your permission, and it might be on a subconscious level and you're going, well, I didn't know that I was but
Yeah.
a lot of that is working through it now and being confident in the fact that you have the ability to recognize yourself for who you are and the powers that you have and the strengths that you have.
I hear you saying raising your awareness, raising your consciousness about self.
Yes.
That's another way of maybe I'm paraphrasing
You're
you.
doing, yeah, that's great. Yeah, put it.
Another reason is to raise your awareness, raise your consciousness about how incredibly powerful each one of us really is.
And recognize that you can look this stuff up and form your own opinions. That's why we brought in
Yeah.
that other video, and why we're kind of talking, it's kind of going in circles a little bit, but there is so much
There's
out
so
there.
much.
And
Yeah.
then when you realize a lot of it's just chatter, and what it boils down to is self-love and loving others and humanity, and then there's not the need for anything to come attacking, and that
Yes.
there can be peace here and there's peace in the afterlife. Is that,
Exactly. You have
yeah.
choices, which is again free will. You have choices, you have choices, you have choices on both sides.
Yes.
You will hear stories of people saying, I went to hell and came back and this is what I saw. I died and I went to the light and this is what I saw. Yeah, they chose that. It's there's a whole nother discussion about contracts that you subscribe to or that you can rewrite or not or follow, or contracts or obligations, or karma is another way to put contracts, good karma, bad karma, all that stuff, and how all those things interplay. But all those things that I just named are still based on free will. You still choose which ones you're going to participate in. Another way of putting it is some people subscribe to getting off the karmic wheel. You don't necessarily have to keep riding that wheel of karma. Some people feel like you do have to stay on there. Nope. So again, personal choice, what your education is, what your self-study is, what Iris just said, raising your awareness, creating more space within yourself about how much power and choice you really have on a
Exactly.
daily basis about everything, not just about consequential stuff.
And then you go all the way back to one of our first podcasts about being triggered. Even that plays into this. Because if you have control of yourself, you're not going to be triggered. And I don't want to bring
You
in a
have
whole nother
awareness of
sentence,
yourself.
but
Yeah, I know.
yeah, but
Yeah,
anyway, just to
yeah,
point
control
that
of
out.
yourself, awareness of yourself, and Tara mentioned, and love yourself.
Yes.
Those are all tools to get your self-awareness up and up and up for how powerful you are. Sidebar that's related, most people, when they start going down that journey, that path that we're talking about, one of the first obstacles they run into is worthiness issues, self-worth issues. Am I good enough? Did I do it right? Am I worthy? And those are some of the questions that mainstream religions have tried to answer, that they eventually wrap you around to saying you're not worthy and you go to hell and you're born a sinner and you're imperfect and broken and you never can, and you constantly have to seek outside of yourself for God, for salvation, for the word of doctrines and dogmas. And they completely bypass the fact that all of that sacredness eternally lives inside of each of us, that you are a sacred being, that you have the God light. In Christian terms, you are a child of God. Therefore, that means you're made of the same stuff God is. And take that however you want.
Let your light shine.
And let your light shine and be the powerful sacred being that you really are, and realize that things like self-doubt and guilt and shame and all these things are man-made labels evaluating, putting values on stuff via what is good and what is bad. And this is all man-made stuff. And we're talking about going beyond that
Yes.
and realizing how incredibly sacred and powerful you naturally are 24/7
Yes.
since before you were born.
So
yeah.
with that, I think, we'll wrap it up because we're at 10 after now. Quick reminder again, next week, words are important, and we're going to talk about spelling. And then in 2 weeks for our Halloween edition, it's going to be urban legends or real hauntings. We're going to tell you what we know, and you can join us
that Wednesday night.
Yeah, that Wednesday before Halloween.
Yeah.
And we're going to pick a couple of our own favorite
Haunted
stories and kind of analyze them, what we know. And I've been with haunted investigations and stuff like that, so we'll talk about some of the findings and what.
Please
And
tell
then
us
we're
some
going to kind of
the
do a
background.
reading.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if
I'd
you've
feel
got
into
any, as an audience, if you have anything that you want to ask about, bring it, and we'll try to talk about that too. So thank you. I know we had some new people come in tonight, and old friends came in, and it's awesome to see everybody. And thank you so much for being with
Namaste.
us.
Blessings for all. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.